Joe Thomas at CPAC, and our CPAC coverage brought to you by teacherpartners.com, helping the teachers in our area connect with folks who can help them get the stuff they need to do the teaching that they want to do. This story is going to hit a little close to home as well. Maybe it's just me. I should ask my stage producer here and guest wrangler, is it just me, or do I find stories that have local implication all the time? Do you think it's just me? Joining us now, dear friend, last time we had him on was last summer when we were at Federation.
I believe September, yes.
Yeah, at the Federation for American Immigration Reform Feet to the Fire rally, and is Dale Wilcox, Executive Director of the Immigration Reform Law Institute. And as soon as he came over, he has this piece on California sanctuary, obviously a sanctuary state. But it involves ICE detainers, and I see the word ICE detainers, and I think Albemarle Charlottesville Regional Jail Authority Board, and their continuing efforts, and they are always tabling this, and bless Chip Harding and all the Commonwealth's attorneys that gather together, Robert Tracy and others, and I don't want to leave anyone out, Nelson County, Louisiana, all pushing back on the idea where West Bellamy, yes, that one, and Diantha McKeel, although from what I'm told, Diantha has swung the other way on this issue of releasing criminal detainers without informing ICE of it. And at some point, they're going to have to vote on this because they keep saying they're going to. Maybe they're just waiting for that time when you're not paying attention. We won't let that happen. But Dale, you've got this whole piece on California sanctuary and the ICE detainers. What's happened in California?
Well, we just yesterday broke an investigation. We have been digging into sanctuary cities and states, sadly, for some time now. And our investigation revealed that a shocking number of California law enforcement agencies are rejecting ICE detainer requests. Specifically, in a 27-month period, 5,600 detainers were ignored.
And this is what Charlottesville and Albemarle want to become a sanctuary for, is where if we have somebody in jail, and this is just so the legalese of an ICE detainer. So Sheriff Chip Harding or Chief Ron Lance with the Albemarle County Police Department, or Chief Brackney in Charlottesville arrest somebody. They're not in the country legally.
Right.
They go to our jail for whatever the offense was they committed here. When they're about to be released, ICE gets informed by the jail board saying, "Hey, Chief Coomer will call the ICE and say, hey, so and so is about to get out."
Right, and in fact, when any individual is booked into a county jail, their fingerprints are sent to the FBI. The FBI shares that with the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security will send what's called an ICE detainer request if it's an illegal alien, and ask the facility to hold them for an additional 48 hours so that the federal authorities can go and pick them up so they can be deported from the country.
Yep.
And you have jurisdictions all around the country, and California is especially egregious in this regard, ignoring these requests, and they're releasing these criminals back out onto the street.
And I think that's where maybe Diantha, as a representative of Albemarle County, didn't realize our jail is in the county. So if these people are released, they're coming into Albemarle County and they're looking for something to do there.
You're right. And in the case of California, 5,600 detainers were ignored. But even more egregious, 3,400 of that number were threat level 1 and 2 offenses. We're talking about homicide, kidnapping, sexual assaults, on and on. And this has real consequences. Just last week in Napa County, one of those detainers that was ignored. In fact, 4 detainers were ignored for the individual who took a shot at that deputy sheriff from the car, and she unloaded the gun and took his life. 4 detainers had been lodged against him in the past. He had committed
4 times.
4 times ICE had asked them to turn him over to the feds, and they refused. And this is what happens. And in fact, this guy had been deported 3 times even.
Jeez. And I just got a text message. I didn't mean to. It's just all of a sudden I couldn't remember Danny Rutherford's name, Nelson County Commonwealth Attorney. More great people. I know I'm going to leave people out when I talk about all the folks who are pushing back against the ICE detainer votes with this. sanctuary jail is really all I can call it.
Yeah.
Dale,
Yeah.
is, we're trying to make sanctuary jails where people can get arrested. Okay, so now there's a whole argument with people. They talk about the open borders. Oh, these people aren't criminals. The only crime they've committed is coming into the country without documentation. Well, now you've got ones who have stolen, assaulted, raped.
Yes.
So now, aside from just being in the country illegally, they have actually broken laws that any normal citizen is going to spend 10, 15 years in jail for, potentially.
You're absolutely right. And even if they're just charged, if they're charged with a crime, they should be turned over to ICE because, first of all, they've jumped the border or overstayed a visa, and there are many crimes associated with just that status that they have broken. So there is no such thing as an otherwise law-abiding illegal alien.
IRLI.org is Dale's website. It's the Immigration Reform Law Initiative. Our board likes to dodge on this idea of, there's this program called Vine, and ICE, if ICE is so interested, they can watch the releases announced on Vine, and it's inaccurate from what everyone's told. The jail superintendent Coomer said it's inaccurate. Sheriffs have said it's inaccurate. Commonwealth attorneys, but they're shrugging, saying, ICE can do their own work. We're not going to do their work for them.
Why would they have to do that? State and local jurisdictions all the time cooperate with the feds. They cooperate with other states. If a state sends a detainer request, you have a fugitive. We want him. California will hold them. They won't do it when it's immigration. There's an agenda behind this. It's absurd, and it puts American lives at risk.
I want to put the agenda on center square, Dale, because the Charlottesville Albemarle Regional Jail currently does inform ICE and has for a very long time. ICE has existed for 10 years now?
Yes.
About 10 years?
ICE after September 11,
right.
DHS was created, and then all the sub-agencies under it.
But I was trying to remember what year ICE became, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. But so for at minimum 10 years, Charlottesville Albemarle's regional jail or these California jails have called ICE and said, hey, here's that guy, he's about to get out, and come get him. So what could possibly be different now that has decided to make these jails stop telling people when criminal offenders are getting out? Because, I'm sure if he was a rapist and the woman who, supposedly this is, registered sex offenders, these people, you're supposed to know when they move into your community. That's our law. Why are these all of a sudden wanting to break the law, these law enforcement agencies?
Well, they're receiving pressure from the ACLU, among others. The ACLU took to a campaign to send letters to sheriffs nationwide with a veiled threat stating if you comply with ICE detainers, you're violating the Fourth Amendment prohibition against unreasonable search and seizure. And, you might get sued. And there was a one district court opinion out in Oregon that they've used nationwide to say you could get a money judgment against you. So you best stop complying. Now, others ideologically quit cooperating with ICE because, and it's usually, sadly, Democrats have sold out to this anti-borders ideology, and because they're looking for potential new voters.
And unfortunately, people who are on the margins of society. And that's the sad thing, is you want somebody to come in and flourish in a free society, not become a ward of the state. Dan Wilcox, IRLI, Immigration Reform Law Institute, is on with us from CPAC. And I've got to ask you, though, when we look at this issue of the criminal detainer announcements, calling, you talk about the sanctuaries, you talk about the agenda, you talk about why they wouldn't make these requests. When folks are coming, is this well known amongst the illegal immigrants that if you go to a certain area, the jail is going to ignore your immigration status? Does it get down to the border where somebody's coming up from El Salvador, Guatemala, and they're like, go to Charlottesville, they're not going to let ICE know when they're getting out, or go to Napa Valley, California?
It absolutely does. In fact, the individual who shot Kate Steinle out in California stated, I went to that area because I knew it was a sanctuary jurisdiction.
It's amazing. So who's leading on this? And especially amazing, somebody like Nancy Pelosi, who represents the area where Kate Steinle was killed, ignoring it. We need Democrats to get on this. I know that the Democrats always go after Republicans and try to win them over to their gun-grabbing, liberty, assaulting side. Can we convince a couple of, like a Joe Manchin, who voted, correctly a couple of times now? Can we tell them that right and wrong is more than party affiliation?
Oh, absolutely. And what you're doing, highlighting this issue, is a big part of that. We need to keep it on the front burner, and because this is not going to stop. Sanctuary cities are not compassionate, nor are they humane. They are dangerous, and people are dying. Americans are dying. I could give you many examples. Back on Christmas Day, the Napa County deputy survived, thankfully. But on Christmas Day, a police officer was killed out in California by an illegal alien who had convictions. ICE was not notified, and that family is separated from their loved one forever. And then even the month before, New Jersey, Middlesex County ignored detainers for an individual who left New Jersey, went out to Missouri, and allegedly killed 3 people.
Dan, you mentioned that they're using the Fourth Amendment against us, weaponizing the Bill of Rights against us. Is it amazing to you you're a lawyer,
yes.
correct? Yeah, right. So you studied law. The word, the words in the Bill of Rights are very careful. Unreasonable search and seizure.
Yes.
So how is it that is it selective hearing? Do they skip the word unreasonable? They think, Fourth Amendment says you can't surveil my laptop or you can't search my premises. No, it doesn't. It just says there are processes you have to go through to prove that you have a reasonable suspicion to go do that. But this unreasonable search and seizure, if somebody can't produce their driver's license, then you've sort of made it a reasonable question as to who you are and why are you here.
I absolutely agree with that, but I would even go a step further. The Fourth Amendment, the way it's phrased, it says the people shall be secure. The people. Anytime our founders use the people, like in the Second Amendment, courts have ruled that the Second Amendment does not apply to illegal aliens. They're not a part of the body politic. They are not part of the people.
Citizenship
so that's why
has import.
The law that states that illegal aliens cannot possess firearms has been upheld in federal court. Okay, so that's been upheld, and that phrase has been used as the reason. Fourth Amendment's phrased the same way. Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to illegal aliens. They're not supposed to be here.
And this is where the left always comes after conservatives, Dale. And I'm going to get on my little soapbox here at CPAC. But they always come after and say, well, you conservatives all say that God-given rights. Well, how does somebody from Guatemala, aren't they created by the same God? Yes, but the only government that swears to protect those, or supposedly swears to protect them, is the United States government.
Yes.
All the other governments are constituted to believe that they give the rights to their citizens. So that's why citizenship is so important, because we're the only place that recognizes that these rights are yours, God gives them to you. If we lose them, then what the hell the difference citizenship makes?
You're absolutely right, and the arguments against the wall kind of fall in the same vein. There shouldn't be borders, is what we're hearing today. Are you kidding me? If you don't have borders, you don't have a nation state.
I would love the whole world to live under the U.S. Constitution. I would love that. But what we're seeing is the rest of the world saying, yeah, that's a novelty. You should live like the rest of us with state-run dictatorship. We can call it the Senate. People forget, when Rome fell, the Senate still existed. All the trappings of their democracy were still there. So if you wandered the streets of Rome, you'd think, yeah, everything's still the same. But it was a dictatorship. They had collapsed, and a dictator, the Caesars, had taken over. And we'll let the people think bread and circuses. So, we can sit here and say democracy. Democracy is in the Bill of Rights. And it's important to us. And this is why Charlottesville, I get so amped about it. I get so amped because, sure, James Madison didn't want to write a Bill of Rights because he was afraid that if it became a government document, people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer would come along and say, well, it's a government document, so I can kind of play with it. I can play with it. So he wrote it very specifically to be so abundantly clear that this is not something the government gives to you. And thank you for standing up for it.
Well, thank you for having me here.
I appreciate it. Dale Wilcox, IRLI.org. And can they read this report that you just broke?
Absolutely. It's they go to our website. It's we have the press release up there. And
we'll share the link on the podcast as well when this goes out.
I appreciate that. It's an important issue, and Americans need to let their voice be heard.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank
God
you.
bless.